So over the weekend, my team and I at Empirics, we had a chance to talk to several authors as we were trying to plan out the publishing agenda of the next 3 months. And as we're doing so, I realized that really self-help is one of the most popular genres of recent times. I mean, you just have to go to a bookstore and that section just mountains all the other sections by so much, by the amount of people who are frequenting them. And I think what's even more fascinating is that if you were to look at the titles that are on the shelves and you really were to see amongst the variety of the writers from all around the world, these self-help authors, there's one common thread. They tend to all write about the pursuit of happiness, or at least how to be happy, this idea. And it's fascinating because it makes you think the world is getting better, as we're told, getting more progressive. Yet, many of us are desperately trying to find out how we can be happier. And so it really makes you wonder, are we so unhappy despite how far we've come? And it's really against this context that today I want to share with you about this Greek philosopher that actually a few of our authors have written about on Empirics, but also spent quite a bit of time reading about. And his name is Epicurus. He's from 341 BC. And why I want to talk about him is because he believed that he had actually cracked the code of happiness. I mean, he dedicated his entire life studying it. He's even started, well, at least back in ancient times, a school of happiness. And so he believed that the key to happiness really laid in the pursuit of pleasure. Now, when you first hear that, you think, is he advocating that we should be hedonistic, that we should, live life chasing in the indulgence, decadence, and sex, money, booze, entertainment? Actually, quite the contrary. According to Epicurus, we have to pursue pleasure, but pursue it in a philosophical way. And what he really means is he spent his entire life investigating our conceptions of what is pleasure/happiness. And he realized that a lot of our conceptions are wrong. Despite the fact that he wrote about these and investigated these thousands of years ago, it is actually so relevant today. For example, one of the things he looked at was this idea that this misconception that we have, that romance is a key to happiness, that in life we would have to find a soulmate or have amazing love affairs or love encounters or relationships of a passionate, sensual kind, and that we would be very happy. Although he wrote about this thousands of years ago, of course that is a narrative that is constantly being told to us and sort of introduced to us by Hollywood and of course TV and media. But according to Epicurus, this is actually a misconception, because although romance can make us happy, and it is a happy thing, it also comes with a lot of emotional complications. For example, we can talk about emotions like jealousy, betrayal, all sorts of issues, usually in the long term, according to Epicurus. And so they often result ultimately in heartbreak and many sort of issues when we only blindly just pursue these things. The second thing that we constantly think is really a source of happiness is the idea that we have to make more money, we have to be rich, and if we're rich, we'll be happy. And this is, of course, without doubt, one of the common ideas of today, especially in capitalist society, that we need to all be rich so we have more things and be happier. Well, according to Epicurus, in order to be rich, we have to work, and we have to work really hard to be rich. But working really hard to chase money and the riches really is truly in its exertion unhappy a thing. Because again, you're doing it so difficultly and chasing it so hard, but it is all very meaningless because you're only doing it for the money, that you will ultimately become unhappy. And of course, we only need to think about the sort of people that are slaving away at a job that they absolutely despise because they want the money, or that's doing certain things, entire career paths just because of the money, but they're deeply unsatisfied today. Again, over thousands of years ago, still very relevant today. Now, from these misconceptions, he introduced his own more, he believed, truthful conceptions. So for example, the first key to happiness, according to Epicurus, is rather than pursue passion and romance, we should pursue relationships through more or less a lens of building deep, platonic, but genuine connections with people, friendship. The idea that we should really focus on developing a connection between like-minded people where you could experience life together and truly, in a genuine way, build this connection where you can share values and ideas and really build a very strong sort of relationship with one another that is on the basis of friendship, on the basis of actually a genuine connection, a pure connection, rather than being clouded by the temperaments of passion and romance. And in terms of work, he actually advocated, instead of working to be rich, we should strive to have freedom in our life, freedom and self-sufficiency. And what he's talking about here is really, we should all try and be free in pursuing the things we want to do, our own hobbies, our own interests, and do these things because they are a representation and an expression of our personhood. And if we can do these things, then we'll be much happier than if we were doing something that is meaningless, because these things, they are very meaningful to us. And hopefully by doing these things, we can become self-sufficient. Now, we might not be rich doing these things according to him, but at least in doing these things, we can actually be happy. And that is the most important thing for Epicurus. So he was not just a talker though. Now, I believe, actually, he was probably one of the first few people in recorded history to have conducted a social experiment, if you will, because apparently thousands of years ago, he actually bought a plot of land and he actually built a house on this plot of land and he called it the garden. He had a cool name for it. And essentially, there were many private rooms and also a common area in this home he built. And he invited all his friends to live with him in this home and practice the principles that I just mentioned, where during the daytime, him and his friends would be in their rooms, doing the things they want to do, their own hobbies, their own interests, and make a trade out of it in the sense of trying to survive from it. And then they would spend time together in the common area. And according to him, the recorded result was they were all much happier from it. And so he really believed in these principles and he believed that they were the keys to happiness. Now, the final key I want to talk about tonight is really from his investigation of desire. We all have desires in life. There are many things that we want in this life. And we naturally would think as a logical conclusion that if we were to get the things that we want, that we desire, we would be happy. Now, Epicurus challenged this too. And he wants us, and what he did was he also investigated into desire. And ultimately, he came up with 3 types of desires that we have to be aware of. He said that there were, firstly, natural but necessary desires, natural but unnecessary desires, and vain desires. Now, for the natural necessary desires, he was talking about really, the desires that revolve around our human condition. So these are the things that we need as sort of a necessity to survive. So for example, you think about food, shelter. Now these things, you have to say a lot of us are quite fortunate that in the sense that we don't really live in, a lot of us, we don't live in third world countries. Some of us are not impoverished or homeless, but yet there's so many people around the world who are a large majority of the global population. And just to have these basic things, they would just be so grateful and so happy. The fulfillment of these natural and necessary things makes us happy. But the issue is I don't think we have the gratitude. And that is the thing that Epicurus talks about, that we have to realize that the fulfillment of these things, they naturally makes us happy, and we have to be mindful of them. We develop a sense of gratitude. Now, the other thing is really the natural but unnecessary desires. These are the things that are an extension of our natural desires. So for example, luxury food, which is something he looked at. You could say a gourmet meal is decadently delicious. To have something that is gourmet is amazing. But yet, we have to realize that the fact that it is luxurious is not really itself that special to warrant really building a value system happiness around it. Having food is already a great fulfillment. Having luxury food is an unnecessary thing. It is an interim thing. It can make us feel good. It could be an experience, but it is an interim thing. It is not the most important thing. So what he's saying is really in counter, I think, to today's culture, especially in social media, where we're constantly seeing these things being shared about, these amazing foods and amazing trips around the world and this idea of living so luxuriously. Well, the fact is these things are not necessary. And we shouldn't just chase these things because we have to realize of their interim nature. They don't really fulfill us in a truly natural way. They are just an addition, an extension, and they don't represent truly a sustainable or really a legitimate basis of happiness. And this is such a relevant topic for today because there's so many people today who are so immersed in social media, especially if how happy looking certain people are, and they realize that, maybe they are lacking these things. And what Epicurus is saying to you is that, no, these things are not the most important things. They are unnecessary. We have to be conscious of it. The third thing really is the idea of vain desires. Now, in this, what he's really talking about is really the desires that are put forth by society. Society tells us the things we should have to be happy. So these are things like, for example, fame, wealth, power, status. Now, Epicurus believes that these things by nature are endless. And they're endless because essentially you can never have enough wealth, you could never have enough status or fame or power. It is an endless thing, and its pursuit is limitless. And because of that, you can never truly feel fulfilled chasing this desire because, again, there's no end in sight. You will forever be insatiable. And these are the sort of desires that we really have to avoid. In summary, in these three types of desires, he says we should celebrate these sort of natural and necessary desires. We have to be conscious and mindful of the unnecessary natural desires. But most importantly, we have to be critical and avoidant of these vain desires. And this message is so relevant today in our culture today, especially when I think a lot of us, our value systems are constantly being influenced, whether we're aware or not, by social media and really this sort of consumer society that we're part of. And I think it's so important really to take heed of these words. But really from this investigation in desire comes his final key. And that is that Epicurus believes that in order to be really happy, we have to develop philosophical thought. And what that means really is we have to learn to philosophically contemplate our own lives and also our own value system of happiness, the sort of pleasures that we pursue, and realize and maybe question ourselves whether they actually make us happy. And that is so important because, to be philosophical in this contemplation will only bring good, will only bring us closer to happiness. And that is the most important sort of key that's come from Epicurus. We have to be incredibly philosophical, mindful of the sort of pleasures that we pursue in life. So in sum, what Epicurus has really said, three things I would summarize tonight is this. Instead of pursuing just passions and romance as the ultimate thing in human interactions and relationships, we should focus instead on human connection, on the idea of friendship, on the idea of a genuine connection that is bound really by two people of a like mind and sharing interests and really enjoying the building of a connection rather than being clouded by passion, by romance, or ideas of love. These things are secondary if we really want to pursue something that is more closer to a sustainable form of happiness in human relationships. The second thing is really the idea in our pursuit of our own path in our work. We should pursue freedom, the freedom to do things that we want to do, and really to indulge in our interests and our hobbies and hopefully build self-sufficiency from it. Not to chase richness and wealth and really material things, but really to chase the ability to be who we are, because that is really a key to lead a more meaningful life. But ultimately as well, to be philosophical and critical of the desires that we have in life and the sort of pleasures that we pursue in life. And if we can practice these three things, according to Epicurus, then we will definitely be much happier. If you found tonight's video enjoyable, then do stay tuned to my YouTube channel. But also, if you have a chance, check out Empirics Asia. This is the knowledge platform that my team and I have been building for the past 8 years. It's a central place where authors from all around the world can publish and really share ideas and insights and wisdom with one another. And we hope to really build a collective knowledge that will empower each and everyone's life.